A lot of our listeners, the natural route for a lot of accountants is do your audit, you qualify, and then you go to industry. And then a smaller percentage will stay on, go through the ranks. But for a lot of people outside, they just look at consulting firms, they just say audit, tax, maybe restructuring. What is the current state of these consulting firms? How has it evolved? How is it different? How would you be, as a CEO of one of the biggest consulting firms in the world, how are you attracting talent?
Attracting talent has never been a big challenge, but retaining them has always been the challenge. Like you rightly said that, they come to the audit and consulting firm, gain 2, 3, 4 years of experience, and they move to the industry. The reason why they move to the industry is because industry is able to pay 20, 30% more. They are the cost center over there, whereas for the audit and consulting firm, we treat each and every individual as a profit center. Right? So there's a difference.
Hey there, listeners. Can you believe it? We're already on season 4 of the Alchemy Uncensored podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I've got one quick favor to ask. I'm sure anyone that listens to podcasts will know what I'm about to ask. But if you've been loving the journey so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, especially as we keep leveling up this season. And while you're at it, why not leave us a review? Your feedback has been a huge part of what's gotten us to season 4, and it helps us keep bringing you the content you love. And of course, one more thing. If you're feeling extra generous, share this episode with a friend who'd love to hear it. Let's grow this amazing community together. And all right, that's it for now. So let's get straight into the show. Thank you. Welcome back to Alchemy Uncensored podcast. It's incredible. We're already on our 4th season. And we're excited to continue bringing you honest conversations, fresh perspective, and valuable insights from leaders across the UAE's finance and tax sector. I'm Conor McHugh, the founder of Alchemy Search. And before we dive into today's conversation, we're excited to announce our partnership with Alan, the Middle East's leading corporate card and expense management platform. Alan helps companies eliminate petty cash, reimbursements, and manual reconciliations by automating expense tracking, approvals, and accounting. So finance teams get more control and visibility without the manual work. Today's episode features Saad Maniar, CEO of Baker Tilly UAE, globally ranked as the 8th largest accounting and advisory network in the world. He also serves on the firm's regional board. So Saad, how are you?
Very good. Thank you very much. Honored to be here.
No, it's great to have you here. And actually, I think we were just chatting before we came on. I think you're the first ever consultancy leader that we've had on the show. I think it's obviously been driven predominantly for industry CFOs, leaders, a few HR professionals. So very keen to go down a different tangent today.
My pleasure.
If you can give our listeners an overview, I know you're very well known in the region, but for our listeners outside the region, if you can give us a bit of a bird's eye overview of yourself, where you're from, how your career has been thus far. And we'll go from there.
I'm from India. And to be honest, I didn't plan to be in this audit and consulting field. I did my graduation in chemistry and then tried to find my way in terms of how I can get some opportunities in some good organization. And in that process, I realized that that's not going to serve me well. So I started to explore and ended up doing a chartered accountancy qualification from the UK. And today here I am. In terms of my experience, it has been an amazing journey. I have spent nearly 3 decades in audit and consulting practice, right from the auditor all the way to the CEO. It has been a fascinating journey, lots of learnings, a lot of hard work. I still recall my early days when I was serving as a Secretary General for our chairman of West Asia and Africa region for my previous network. And the chairman asked me, Saad, you are working very hard. And I foresee that you will do well in your career. And I said that, I hope things get easier. And he said just one thing that you will see. And at that moment, I did not kind of realize what he meant, you will see. But now, for being in the senior position, I realize that what he meant, you will see. there is a lot of responsibility on the shoulders. We employ around 300 people here, and at the end of the month, when we have to pay their salary, that's the responsibility that we carry, right? So regardless of whatever situation or circumstances, we got to make sure that we pay on time. Right?
Very important.
It has been an amazing experience. Consulting is very exciting. Audit not so much as one can imagine, but overseeing the overall firm as a leader has given me some great insights, and I have always been passionate about the profession. I believe in giving it back, so I contribute a lot of my thought leadership and the feedback to the professional bodies and the standard setters in terms of improving the profession.
Actually, let's dig into that then a bit, because a lot of our listeners, the natural route for a lot of accountants is, you do your audit, you qualify, and then you go to industry. And then, a smaller percentage will stay on, go through the ranks. But for a lot of people outside, they just look at consulting firms, they just say audit, tax, maybe restructuring. But what is the current state of these consulting firms? How has it evolved? How is it different?
Yeah.
How would you be, as a CEO of one of the biggest consulting firms in the world, how are you attracting talent?
Attracting talent has never been a big challenge, but retaining them has always been the challenge. Like you rightly said, that they come to the audit and consulting firm, gain 2, 3, 4 years of experience, and they move to the industry. The reason why they move to the industry is because industry is able to pay 20, 30% more. They are the cost center over there, whereas for the audit and consulting firm, we treat each and every individual as a profit center, right? So there's a difference in the pay scale. And my belief is that the profession has a long-term career, right? So in short term, there's a lot of grinding that happens. However, once someone is able to pass through the manager level and above, they'll be able to make a lot of monetary benefits than they would be otherwise making as a CFO or other industry professionals. So my advice to most of the people who come to us is that, stay committed to the profession, especially when we talk about the audits. Audit is not very attractive profession to retain the talents. The reason it requires a lot of hard work, right? And it's not well remunerated in the early stage of the career because it gives you a lot of experience, but at the same time, we are not able to remunerate them to the level of the industry. So what happens is generally the risk and the reward do not balance out. And as a result, we lose the talented people to the industry. Yeah. What I foresee is that the audit profession is going to be in great demand. Now, why it is going to be in great demand is because currently there is a big shortage in terms of the people at the partner level. Because we lose most of the people even before they become a manager. And the managers today, they are not willing to take on the responsibility. The reason why they are not willing to take on the responsibility is because there is too much risk. You see every day here, you open any newspaper, and if there is any corporate failures around the world, the first finger is being pointed at the auditors. And auditors are being held responsible. And in every which way, even the regulators, when they come to review, the kind of the skepticism they apply on the audit profession is very big. And as a result, people see it as a lot of risk with less reward in the early stage of the career. However, as you grow, the balance is tilted and you tend to reap more rewards.
Yeah, naturally, auditors are they're risk-adverse individuals for the most part. So I think there's a big gap. And then within that, in Baker Tilly right now, what fields are there? You've got audit, just for our listeners that are potentially looking at going down the consulting route. As I said, when I was back in the day, it was audit, tax, and I think when KPMG lost me, they weren't losing talent, definitely. I think they were happy to see me go. But for people that, as you said, audit, it can sort of sometimes be a means to an end for some people. But how are you retaining people? Is there different fields that people can go into within consulting that maybe is a bit more interesting, or what's happening these days in the consulting firms?
If I give you the global perspective, maybe 10 years back, the audit and consulting practice was nicely balanced, 50-50. 50% would be audit, 50% would be consulting. Today, the balance has tilted more towards the consulting. Audit would represent about 30% of the revenues of the global network, and the balance 70% is contributed by the consulting.
And just on the consulting piece, is that broken into different fields within the consulting?
Yes. So within the consulting, what has really picked up lately is a risk advisory practice, right? Which includes the cyber risk and the technology-related risk and so on. And the other piece of the consulting business, which has really picked up well, is digital transformation, business transformation. And these are the big projects. So it's not necessarily requires the accounting professionals, but the mix of the technology and the accounting professional. That's what we are able to offer to clients.
And I think the transformation piece, even we're seeing now more mandates for transformation, because for listeners who are outside the region, everything in UAE looks pretty on the outside. I think you've probably seen enough finance functions, but I think when you peel it back and open up the bonnet, there's a lot of upskilling too. And I think one thing as well, which you can probably resonate quite well with this, is that for CFOs in particular, Dubai was very transient, where people came and go. Maybe the CFO was there for 18 months, 2 years, and they move on. So the vision kept changing. While now, definitely the last few years, there is a lot more stability with CFOs. I think people are pushing things through, which I think now these transformation projects, if he or she is going to be there, it's going to happen. While previously someone else was coming in with a complete different view. So we're seeing transformation pick up, and obviously you guys are seeing quite a bit as well.
There is a lot of moving parts when we say this digital transformation. Generally, when we talk about AI at this moment in time, everyone says that we do for AI. And to be honest, many of us are not really using the AI. We call the automation to be an AI. But it's a matter of time. It will pick up a lot more momentum, and we'll have a lot more relevant tools and technology available for deploying at the SME level. Of course, the larger organizations have adopted the AI and have tried to make the best use of it. But in the SME sector, it's still coming up. While there are a lot of threats as a result, but there are opportunities as well.
A lot of your clients, is AI being implemented quite a lot, or do you think it's still, my view from recruitment is that there's a lot of guinea pigs out there, and everyone's telling you this is going to change the game. So, but for me personally, we're sort of standing back a bit and waiting to see what does work.
I think people are using just Chat GPT and Copilot at the moment. There's much more for AI than just these chat tools, which gives you the quick output and the results. What we have seen is, or what I foresee is that AI is going to help the organization take the decisions. And the only element that will be left to the humans is the judgment. And that judgment will come from the experience. Right. So the previous experiences of the people will allow them to take the judgment. So the AI will take the decisions and say, you should take this decision.
Yeah.
Right. And then the human will analyze based on his experience and see whether that decision is true. 90% of the time, I think they'll go with the AI's decision. Maybe 10% of the time, they'll need to flex the judgment and take some other decisions.
Yeah. And actually, it'd be quite interesting now. Obviously, you're the CEO of a massive company. You have a lot of people reporting into you, dotted line straight. Have you seen certain people really pushing AI, or is it, what's been the view amongst, your directors, senior managers?
I mean, people are seeing certainly this as an advantage in terms of easing their job. However, there are a lot of risk involved as well, because we are in the industry where the confidentiality is one of the key pillars. So whatever we do, we need to have a lot of governance around the use of AI, because we need to preserve the confidentiality of the data that we gather from the clients. So from that perspective, we are very vigilant in terms of how we use the AI within our practice.
How is the view for consulting for the next 5, 10, 15 years? As I said, Audit, it seems to be, going a little bit the other way. But if I had just done my university degree and I said, I met you. I said, I want to be an accountant. Would you still audit still your good starting ground, then look into other ways, or?
Yeah, audit has been the good foundation always, because it gives you an exposure to a variety of industries in terms of getting the insight, and then building upon that. I think if someone wants to move into the consulting space, there can be a bigger opportunities for them that way.
Now we're going to put you in a position which you're probably, I know you're a very humble person, so you're going to have to talk about yourself now for a bit, because I said I've known you probably, give or take 5 or 6 years. You've always struck me as an incredibly calm individual. So how I want to start this off is, have you always been this calm? Because sometimes I speak with CFOs, and again, a lot of them are incredibly calm, but a lot of them say it took them learnings, mentors.
Right.
But for you, how are you? And I think a lot of people know you in UAE. So, what I'm saying, I think is probably true. Other people say the exact same thing, but have you always just been this calm?
I think I've inherited this from my father, who was a very calm and composed person, and he was very knowledgeable and to share a lot of wisdom in our community. So for, seeing him over the years, I think I realized that it will add value to be calm and composed. Not that I get aggravated by certain situation and circumstances. Deep down, I may have some fears or certain nervous moments.
You're human after all.
But staying calm in that situation, because whatever has to happen will happen, right? Now, as a leader, our role is to how we mitigate that. So my focus is always on, okay, this problem has happened. It has happened. You cannot undo it, right? Now, what you can do to mitigate that, right? What compensatory measures you need to take in order that this problem, what has happened, can be fixed, and you make sure that it won't happen in future. So that's the role as a leader I have.
Yeah, and then let's dig into the leadership piece then, because I think for a lot of our listeners, especially young and up and coming talents, these are the snippets that we want to listen to. So in your previous role, you were there for 26 years, if my memory serves me correct. You were leading an audit practice. Then you moved into a CEO position. So different role, different responsibilities. So I think just for our listeners, obviously you don't need to share any sensitive data, but how has that switch been for you? Like, what have you went from doing to now doing?
Previously, in my role as a partner, and I was also part of the board then as well, but I was just seen as contributing to the overall growth and the strategy of the firm, right? But now, for being the CEO, it's not just title. It brings a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. And so right from building the strategy and implementing that strategy is very important. Just having a conversation with our global CEO, and she mentioned one thing. We rolled out our strategy for 2030 just a couple of weeks back. And post that, we made an alignment of our local strategy with the global strategy. And I was asking her a question. Okay, how do you make sure that you get this implemented right? And one thing she mentioned, that the clarity of the strategy has to be there first place. And secondly, the communication has to be there. The communication, not one time, but ongoing communication. So in all our communication or correspondence with any of the team member, you have to bring back certain elements of the strategy in the play. So even over a coffee, you are just catching up with your colleagues or partners or whoever, you bring up those moments, those values and you link those strategies with them. So that's how you'll be able to effectively implement the strategies.
And for you over time, obviously you've been very calm, which it's clear to see that. But the big thing, I think, being a CEO, every day you receive a problem. And that's the big. Look, I'm CEO of a tiny organization, but there's always a problem. You can't get away from it. And I think that over time, and I'll tell a story. When I was working with Robert Waltz, I'll never forget when I was a consultant and I had this big problem. And for me, it was the end of the world. There was a bit of probably a complaint coming from a client, and I was like, I'm getting in so much trouble here.
Right.
And it got reported to the CEO, an incredible Australian guy. But for me, there's one thing that always struck me was I just told him the information. He registered and he said, okay, no problem. I'll deal with that. And I was like, the biggest relief from me, because he was so calm.
Yes.
And then I took a step back and I realized this is a tiny problem. He doesn't really care about this. This is nothing compared to what he's used to. And I'm sure for you in your role every day, you're going to have people delivering bad news to your challenges, which for them is so emotionally vested in them. But for you, it's like, you know what to do. You process it, you deal with it.
Staying calm is one of the good qualities that is, I would say, needed for any senior position, and really helps us in terms of leading the firm. And people will trust you more if you are calm and composed rather than showing your aggression and anger and emotions to the people. So I've learned this at a very early age, but by nature, I've always been very calm as well. So I didn't have to put much effort in terms of bringing that into the play.
It's such a leadership quality which people don't actually pay much notice to until they actually pay notice to it. That,
right.
Like I think for someone who's going through things, even for me, it's my learning is not to get emotional. I think the biggest mistake sometimes, and people can relate to this, if they get a bad email or, their blood boils up and they want to respond straight away, well, just put it down, relax, and maybe respond in a day or two. Well, because I think naturally there's a human element where you become emotional and then you're not thinking straight. So I think it's trying to focus on being calm.
I think what is one of the important learnings that I had over the years is that normally, someone would come and tell you, okay, this is the problem, right? And if we were to react immediately to that's a big problem, right? Because you have not listened to the other side of the story, right? So it is important that you listen to one person, but then you validate that story with the other person also. And then take a pause and then you respond to that. And that's by the time, even before you respond, things would have calmed down. Because the fact that you have listened to both the parties would give them
it's key, but again, it's such a simple thing. And for you then, leadership advice, what sort of snippets do you have then for, our younger listeners? That's obviously a great example, but what other sort of experience have you evolved over time?
It's the lonely world at the top. You being the CEO as well, you realize that. So it's not all about the glitz and glamour. While we enjoy the position as a CEO and the leader, but it's a 24/7 role. So we got to be on top at all the times. So there are no holidays. We work even during the holidays.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So if someone wants to be in this leadership position, then they got to understand that they got to give this kind of things that they enjoy otherwise.
You're on the clock. You're on the clock 24/7. And as we're recording this episode here now, May, obviously we're still in this conflict period. So I think it'd be interesting for our listeners to get a feel for, given you're in the consulting space, you're exposed to a mass variety of clients. And, there's so much doom and gloom out there in the world naturally these days. But how have you seen it from, obviously you're seeing clients, which industries are going good, which industries are unfortunately going through a bit of a struggle? How is it all panning out? Because you have a great view of everything. Obviously, in recruitment, we have a view from hiring.
To keep things simple, I think the service-based industry is doing relatively good. The industry which is struggling, in my opinion, is the hospitality industry and the businesses which are dependent on the shipment of goods. Right. So these industries are really struggling. But what I foresee going forward, if this thing is going to be prolonged, is the overall impact on the cash flow of each and every company here, not only here in this region, but also globally. We have seen, as a result of the crisis situation here in the UAE and the neighboring countries, we have seen that some of the other countries have panicked also. India, for example, made an announcement a couple of days back that don't buy gold, conserve the fuel, and these kind of messages. These are the economic measures, but the way in which it was conveyed, it has hurt the sentiment of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Indians are by nature big into buying the gold jewelries and things like that, especially on the occasions and the festive seasons, right? And getting these kind of messages is not good. So the world has become very complex, and it has been very difficult for any government to understand the implications of it. And the pace at which things are happening does not give time for them to correct their actions or the mitigation steps. And this is very worrying.
Yeah. Don't look at the news, I think, is probably the best the best advice, as it's changing every day. Great conversation. We're gonna close on a few quick fire questions, just for the audience to get some little knowledge bites from you. So, what's the best bit of advice you've ever received?
I'd just like to maybe share a story. My previous boss, when I first came here to the UAE, I bought a Nissan Sunny, and I was driving that very proudly. And 4 or 5 years down the line, he called me and he said that, Saad, I want you to buy a bigger and better car. I said, no, I'm happy with my car. I maintained it very nicely and I'm happy with it. And he said that, no, I insist that you buy. I said, I don't have money. He said, okay, how much you can afford? I'll supplement a little bit, but you buy. And I looked around and I bought the lowest model of the BMW. And but the moment I sat in that car, it changed the way I think, right? So and I suddenly started to feel that I'm a little bit, bigger, and I tried to do things to make me kind of more relevant to what I'm driving, right? So this is something at the early stage helped me in terms of looking things with a different lens.
That's a great way to look at it, yeah. So you don't have the Sunny anymore. And then, if you could shadow anyone in the world for a day, who would it be?
Oh, that's a difficult question.
Good questions today.
I think I'm truly inspired by the way His Highness Sheikh Mohammed leads the country. I think most of the people who have spent significant time here in the UAE would take the inspiration and try to lead our own organization in a way like Sheikh Mohammed leads this country. So I think he is my inspiration.
No, good. And then last question's easy. If you weren't the CEO of Baker Tilly, what job would you be?
I'd probably be a cricketer.
Cricketer.
That's
always the same answer for Indian and Pakistani guests. It's always cricket.
Yeah. I really enjoy. So I had a little bit of a back problem a few years back, and I gave it up. Just 3-4 weeks back, I've started again.
Good.
And
actually, on that as well, to close, because it's quite interesting. You do this to get away. For a CEO, high pressure job, do you really push that you get a bit of mindfulness? You do a hobby, because it can be all consuming. You're in good shape. Sometimes, these sort of jobs can weigh you down literally.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've pushed because you're like, I need to release?
Yeah, I mean, the release point for me is staying grounded. So while we enjoy the glitz and glamour of being in Dubai, it's not all about the glitz and glamour. I mean, we got to look at the people who are struggling also. So I always make it a point to go around and spend a little time with those people who are really struggling. Yeah. And it could be the friends from my hometown and, people who we know. So it helps us stay grounded.
Stay
and
humble.
That's what brings the humility in us.
No, exactly, because simple life. And a lot of people forget that in Dubai there is very much, you can live very much a simple life, and whatever makes you happy doesn't need to be glitz and glamour.
Yeah.
No, perfect. Well, look, Saad, that brings us to the end of today's episode. I want to thank you for coming in. I think we got a lot of good knowledge bites there, so thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
No worries. Thanks for spending your time with us and being part of the Alchemy Uncensored community. And of course, a big thank you to Alan for supporting the season and helping us bring these conversations to life. We'll be back very soon with more insights and more voices across the region.